The situation along the line of actual control in Ladakh is extremely tense. The Chinese had tried to transgress and unilaterally occupy heights on the southern banks of the Pangong Tso on the night intervening 29th and 30th of August. Now, India, having learnt its lessons from the Chinese deceit at Pangong Tso early May, was not only ready this time, but deployed in numbers and pushed the Chinese soldiers back. But now the sting is in the tail. China has now accused India of crossing the line of actual control and occupying heights on the Chinese side of the line of actual control. China says it urges India to go back. The situation is tense, not just near the south bank of Pangong Tso, where India stopped Chinese soldiers, and apparently by some accounts, Chinese soldiers came in SUVs and in armored personal carriers, wheeled armored personal carriers, some 200 to 300 Chinese soldiers, but Indian soldiers were on commanding heights and they pushed the Chinese back. The situation remains tense, not just at Pangong Tso, but all along the line of actual control, not just in Ladakh, also in Uttarakhand, in Sikkim, in Arunachal Pradesh. Apparently, there are reports of Chinese setting up additional missile units. We'll talk about that in greater detail. So there is movement on the Chinese side, there's deployment on the Chinese side. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We will get you details. We have the finest voices on matters military and diplomacy joining us on the show. I have Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, former Army Commander, Northern Command. He's joining me on the show. Ambassador Nambiar, Vijay Nambiar joins me on the broadcast. But before that, I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Shiv Arur for the latest on the story. Shiv, we are now being told China says India's transgressed. Reckon one of the areas where China says India transgressed apparently is fairly deep inside Chinese territory. What's the latest situation?
Well, Gaurav, some actions have been taken on the south bank of the Pangong Tso. According to our sources in the army, there was an aggressive posture by the Chinese, like in some of the other areas where they were looking to, perhaps cross the LAC and occupy certain territory. And there was a preemptive action that was mounted by Indian forces, specifically the Indian Army and certain special units that are located very close to that particular area, and they have attained a dominating position of certain heights on the line of actual control. Now, we're not going to go into very many specifics because this is an evolving situation, but that's the reason why you're looking at China crying hoarse right now and saying that India has violated the line, etc. Nothing of that sort has happened, at least as far as official confirmations from the Indian side are concerned. What we can say is that China's discomfiture is expected, given that they are at a disadvantage in this particular area, and they were hoping to preempt that. So India has actually counter-preempted any such move by the Chinese, and that's why you're seeing the theater command, the Chinese foreign ministry, every possible agency talk about Indian aggression.
So China was about to take some steps, Shiv. That's what you're saying. China was about to take some steps. India's taken countermeasures very effectively. I want to quickly bring in Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, former Army Commander, Northern Command, and Ambassador Vijay Nambiar into this conversation. General, what do you make of India's actions stopping the Chinese on the south side of Pangong Tso, and China now claiming that India transgressed into Chinese territory?
So, Gaurav, I think, the Indian Army has been prepared. They were a little surprised, during May, but since then they've, ratcheted up the deployment, the ISR capabilities, and I think they took very, very timely action to preempt the Chinese. As the Indian Army statement says, it was very provocative. The moves that were made by the Chinese, they tried to ingress in very large numbers. So I think, compliments to soldiers on ground who are able to preempt this. As far as Chinese statements are concerned, Gaurav, it's much of the same. They keep talking about the LAC. The fact is, what is the LAC? they continuously try and, change the goalpost as far as the LAC is concerned. So I don't think we should take too much credence as far as their statements about, we are on our side of the LAC. Their ambassador himself has said that where they are at Singapore is their traditional boundary. We've been asking them to define the LAC for a long time, which they have not done. So as far as, their statements about LAC are concerned, I think they should just be dismissed.
Fair enough. Ambassador Nambiar, while talks were on with China, 5 rounds of army talks have happened at the level of generals. You've had diplomatic talks at the level of Joint Secretary, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval in conversation with Wang Yi, the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister. And yet Chinese, hundreds of their troops try and come and occupy our territory. China clearly, in your appreciation, not serious about talks at all. Talks are a sham to build up and occupy more Indian territory, sir?
Clearly, this is exactly the tactic they've been adopting to try and as somebody described it as nibble and negotiate. Actually, they've been constantly doing this in a sense, when it is only when they react like this that they've been taken off guard. Otherwise, they're constantly trying to allay you to try to in a sense, make you soporific, keep talking to you while they take their actions. I entirely agree with what General Huda has said, that with their shifting goalposts and their fluid idea of the LAC, they're not willing to identify, they're not willing to discuss the varying conceptions of the LAC as between the Indian side and the Chinese side. Whatever they say is the LAC. That becomes quite untenable. And I think the fact that they have now been they've been preempted is what is causing this kind of grave kind of sense of injured innocence on their part now. Clearly, I think they've been taken. They've thought that they could establish a new fait accompli in the southern part of the Pangong Tso, where they have been that has been denied to them. I think this is something which we obviously have learnt, and it's something which I think the Indian Army has done in the past, and I think we should be doing more consistently vis-a-vis Chinese actions in the future too.
Very interesting you say that. I'm aware of General Huda when he was Army Commander, Northern Command. India had something which had really unnerved China. I had reported on that story, and we will get General Huda to talk about that in greater detail. But for the benefit of viewers who are just joining us, what happened on the night intervening August 29 and 30th? The Chinese army actually showed India and Indians once again why China can never be trusted. Chinese attempted another intrusion, and in large numbers, hundreds of Chinese troops tried to come into Indian territory and occupy the southern side of Pangong Tso. The Indian army was this time ahead of the Oda Loop. The Indian army was very clear what the Chinese could do. The Indian army was already on the heights, and the Chinese were forced to retreat.
Don't be fooled by the silence from Ladakh over the last few weeks. The Chinese have been on the move, except this time they have been caught in their tracks. The line of actual control is on the boil again. The Chinese army has provoked again, and tensions have spiked. On Saturday night, about 200 Chinese soldiers once again tried to make a fresh intrusion bid on the southern banks of the Pangong Lake. The vehicle convoy, comprising SUVs, made a dash in an attempt to occupy fresh territory. But this time, the Indian army was lying in wait. Late last week, the Indian army had foreseen the Chinese action and deployed in advance as a preemptive move, something the Chinese had not expected. When challenged PLA convoy stopped, there was major jostling. But with the Indian army unit stood its ground, determined not to concede even an inch, the PLA troops were forced to retreat. There were no injuries or casualties of any kind.
The southern bank of Pangong Lake had been calm since the standoff started in early May, nearly 4 months back. It is clear that China wanted to make forays into a new area and open a new front. But the Indian Army, due to its enhanced surveillance, was able to detect the Chinese movement very early on and launched a preemptive action, making sure the Chinese do not advance forward.
Make no mistake, ever since Galwan Valley clash on 15th of June, the Indian Army has been on full operational alert to thwart any Chinese misadventure.
They have to go back to status quo ante if they really want peace. The problem is they don't want peace. How long can we go in for a one-sided peace? In my very humble opinion, I think the time has come to call China's bluff, to make it pay a cost and suffer consequences for needlessly aggressive behavior.
After multiple rounds of talks, which has resulted in minor troop pullback, the fresh attempt by China has shown no intent of meeting its commitments. With Chinese troops holding on the flashpoints and significant military build-up by China in the depth areas, the writing on the wall is clear. It's going to be a harsh winter, with little hope of the ice melting anytime soon. With Abhishek Bhalla, Bureau Report, India Today.
General Huda, you heard Ambassador Nambiar say that China was taken off guard, it was caught off guard, and India needs to do this again and again. Now, if we were to do this again and again, would this then not lead to an escalation? And perhaps, is there an apprehension that there could be conflict, skirmishes, a limited war?
So Gaurav, I mean, let's look at the facts. And the facts are that the Chinese have initiated military action, and even at a time when talks are going on, they are still resorting to the use of military force. The second point, Gaurav, I want to very strongly make is that let us not think that the Indian Army's capability in this area is weak somehow. And therefore, it's something that we can respond. There's something that we can do. And so, from our side to sort of fear that, there could be some escalation, so let's not do anything militarily, when constantly the Chinese are doing what they are doing. And for us always to be reactive, I don't think that would be the correct strategy.
Fair enough. And that's a very important point you make. So, Ambassador Nambiar, India took a preemptive measure. The Chinese clearly caught off guard with this measure. What do you make of the statements that are coming from China and some of the movement that we see? And they're saying that transgressions are now happening not just in Ladakh but also in Sikkim. Is there an apprehension that China could try and spread this tension, not keep it restricted to Ladakh, could lead to more pressure in Arunachal Pradesh and elsewhere?
I really can't make a forecast on that, because it's clear that we should be prepared for anything like that. As far as I can see, what they've said on Sikkim is probably also nothing new. They've said it when Doklam happened. They said the same thing, and I think there's really nothing new that is happening there. But I think it is important for us to keep vigilant all over the place, because it is quite possible that they could up the ante somewhere else. I think the army is quite well prepared for that, as far as I can see.
Okay, so we have about 40,000, 2 divisions plus on the Chinese side, General Huda. We have 2 divisions that were located there and additional 2 divisions on the Indian side. Is this then now LOCization of the LAC, that we cannot afford to leave territory, because if we do, China may come and occupy it? But does that also mean that China cannot afford to leave territory? If they leave, we will go and occupy it?
Yes, Gaurav, I think the way tensions are, adapting, and particularly, with this trying to make a foray in a new place and a new sector, where actually there is, no difference in perception of the LAC, I think is going to lead to greater tension all along the LAC. Because obviously, as Ambassador Nambiar has also pointed out, you have to be now wary about the whole LAC. And therefore, you will find greater presence of Indian troops. And to match that, you will find greater presence of Chinese troops on the other side. I dare say it is, not completely like the LOC, but it's getting more and more tense. I mean, all those periods of peace and calm along the LAC, the fact that, no bullet has been fired, I think those days are looking to be over.
So what was China actually attempting to do in your appreciation? Because we heard Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar say, Ambassador Nambiar, that we don't know why China is doing this. Is China doing this in response to our road? Is China doing this in response to us saying Aksai-Chin is also ours, POK is also ours? Or is China sending out another message that we shouldn't get too close to the Americans and Australians and move forward on Quad?
It's difficult to make an analysis straight away, but I think I would want to connect this with the recent visit by Foreign Minister Wang Yi to Tibet, as well as to the statements made by President Xi Jinping also in Tibet. I have a feeling that they are now under the impression that the general temperature in Tibet, activities with regard to the status of Tibet, etc., may come up for increasing international attention. And as such, they want to make it abundantly clear that they're going to have the situation under control. And I think that could be one of the issues. I mean, one of the concerns. I really don't know very much more on that. I couldn't hazard a guess on that. But it could be just a continuation of their military, of their testing of our own preparedness and this reflection of the wolf warrior diplomacy in other areas also in terms of their military action.
General Huda, in case China is looking at wolf warrior diplomacy or testing our resolve, I'm sure with Galwan and this incident south of Pangong Tso and the fact that our road is still coming up, China would know about India's resolve. But your appreciation of the statement made not just by Wang Yi, Chinese Foreign Minister, but also President Xi Jinping on Tibet.
So what was that question addressed to me? I didn't...
Yes, it is. It is, General Huda. Okay, I'll just take a moment and reestablish that link with General Huda in a moment. But the point that General Huda was raising about is India battle ready? General Huda says, of course we are. We now have our Rafales, we have our tanks, we have our ships, our submarines, and our forces on ground. It's our forces on ground that make all the difference, like in this case. But take a look at India's preparedness militarily, also diplomatically.
Fighter jets soar high above, scanning enemy airspace and ground for hostile movement. The warships and submarines have sailed out to checkmate the adversary on the high seas, with some naval assets sailing out close to the Malacca Straits. The army has increased its deployment all along the LAC from Ladakh through Uttarakhand and Sikkim to Arunachal Pradesh to ensure the Chinese notorious for stabbing India in the back do not succeed.
Now we have to either raise the level of negotiation up to the minister level or the external affairs ministry level, or we go for a military action, whatever the government feels is fit. Because army is prepared for both the things. We have to check them. We cannot allow them to change the line of actual control which China is trying to make.
The latest and the most potent Rafale Omni-Role fighter jets are soaring in the skies, adapting to Indian Air Force requirements as part of different combat missions. The IF Sukhoi 30, MKIs, MiG-29 ASF and Mirage 2000s are flying different missions in different sectors. The Chinook helicopters are virtually worth their weight in gold, quickly moving men and material to different locations. The Apache attack helicopters, lovingly called the flying tanks, have carried out sorties on both flanks of the LAC in support of tanks deployed in some areas for the first time. the 155mm howitzers, including the light howitzers, have been deployed and additional gun positions carved out to checkmate China.
भारत अब ऐसी हालात में है कि आंख में आंख देख के बात करेगा और ईंट का जवाब पत्थर से देगा और जब तक चीन यथास्थिति मेंटेन नहीं करेगा अप्रैल 2020 की भारत किसी हद तक जाने के लिए तैयार है
India's aggressive tri-services deployment and quick acquisition of arms, ammunition and spares sends out a strong signal to the adversary. India will protect every inch of its territory from expansionist forces. Bureau Report, India Today.
So one message is very clear. India is willing to do a quid pro quo. India is also willing to take steps that Chinese thought India can never take to remain ahead of what the Chinese could do. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. But before we go,